Welcome to the BNB Investing Podcast for real estate investors. Fix and flippers and realtors exploring investment options with Airbnbs and short-term rentals through acquisition, leasing, or management to generate consistent monthly revenue. Join us for a chat with experienced and successful short-term rental investors to hear their story of how they got started and created wealth by building scalable businesses. We also explore various service providers and lenders that help make our businesses more efficient and maximize revenue in this awesome sharing economy. Welcome your host, Rich Munroe.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Munroe again, BNB Investing Group. Sorry about the false start. We found Veronica. It's a combination of island time and our mix-up in the time zones. With us changing back to daylight savings or off of daylight savings, I think we're the exact same time as San Juan right now. And so I think we had a little bit of a mix-up there, but I'm glad you were able to make it, Veronica.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you
so, BNB Investing Group, we basically like to share best practices, talk about our experiences. And we have a lot of kind of fairly new folks that are new to short-term rentals, but we have a lot of experienced folks as well. And so we like to, talk about the different nuances of the business between master leases, managing properties, and acquisitions. And so I'm so happy to have Veronica here. I was down in Puerto Rico last November and spoke at a conference with her and had a great time. She showed me around Old San Juan and toured her property. And I'm happy to have her on to kind of tell her story. So Veronica, I know we saw each other a few weeks ago in Nashville, but we didn't really get a good time to catch up. So
it's true. It's true. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited to speak with your community. And I loved meeting your beautiful wife. That was awesome. So that was a unexpected treat. She's just amazing. Lots of energy. I love it. She's gorgeous. You're not so bad yourself, Rich. You know what I mean? But
well, you know what everybody says. She does I tell everybody she does the heavy lifting. And so when they find that out, nobody wants to talk to me anymore. They want to talk to her because she's really where the rubber meets the road. She runs the operation basically.
Yeah. I used to in a former life, right? I used to work for a gentleman, great mentor, great educator, and he used to say, do you want to talk to the man in charge, or do you want to talk to the woman who knows what the F's going on?
Exactly. That would be describing us directly for sure.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Veronica. I'm a licensed commercial broker here in Puerto Rico. I'm also, founding, I'm CEO and founder of Amavi Stays. Amavi means loved, from the Latin saying, we came, we saw, we loved. Veni, vidi, amavi. So, and that came from a place of, doing all things with love, because I think people underestimate, and at least when I was entering the business, I found a lot of people underestimating the importance of hospitality in the business. Obviously, there's a lot of elements that a lot of balls that we're juggling, right? But so that's kind of where that came about. I currently have three Airbnbs, 3 short-term rentals, like apartment, 1 and 2 bedroom, with 2 coming soon. That's in Old San Juan, and then 1 in Condado. And then I'm also managing and operating 2 boutique hotels out of Old San Juan as well. So it's a little bit about me. I'm also a published author. I'm very, very proud to be part of the founding version of Hospitable Host One with Joey Sterling, who's amazing. And we're excited. We're excited for what's to come. They just published a 2nd volume, soon to be a 3rd, and then very excited to be spearheading Hospitable Hosts in Espanol. So that's a new venture that I'm very, very proud to be spearheading, and I'm looking forward to rolling out with Jody.
Oh, that's awesome. We're definitely going to touch on more details on the books, because that's an exciting part that you've definitely been involved with. So definitely want to hear more about that. But let's back up a minute. So when you first started, how did you get started in short-term rentals? Kind of tell us a little bit about that.
So, I kind of got started before I relocated to Puerto Rico, and that was out of a need to, after a divorce, I, had a house that was much larger than I needed. And, you know, I through just a series of kind of just coincidences, just ended up preparing kind of like almost like a corporate rental situation, because it was a former employee of mine who I rented it to. So this was my first stint in it. By no means was I professional. Did I think this was going? I mean, I was a vice president of education, of online education and enrollment at the time. So not even a thought of entering this business. And then a couple things happened. Interestingly enough, I survived cancer, and I transitioned out of that role. And I wanted to give myself a new lease on life, a new opportunity to leave corporate America and go all in on me. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I knew I was going to be led by faith and by my ability to have an impact, whatever I did. So I was here just slightly before Hurricane Maria. I actually I'm also a former teacher, so I was teaching English at the time to 7th and 8th graders, and then we were in the summer hiatus, and we had gone into the fall where the storm hit. At that time, I was managing my first boutique hotel, which I know you and I have talked. You know, my first foray wasn't great. I made a lot of mistakes. I went into business with not the best people, unfortunately, and I didn't set up my team. So there are things that I know now, right, that in my second foray with my second company, I learned significantly. And so it's helped me not only to set this company up, but also to help others also set up their companies correctly, you know, have the right legal contracts, you know, put in the right terms. So these are, you know, everything happens for a reason. So after Hurricane Maria, when I transitioned out of that, it was really from a kind of a call from my community. You know, I had 2 years of cancellations at that hotel within 2 hours of that storm. I just signed that contract, Rich. So it was pretty devastating. But being kind of an optimist as I am, I was like, and my faith, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not gonna walk away. Although many people did at that time walk away from a lot of responsibility. I chose to stay. I chose to pay my staff personally, which again, not the smartest. Again, leading with my heart. You know, in hindsight, maybe I would have done things very differently, but you know, it is what it is. And I think that it's all part of the learning curve. So it really came, my business really came from a call from the community needing help. There was a lot of people at that time that had properties that they didn't know what to do with. They weren't technically inclined, so they weren't really very savvy. They had heard about something called Airbnb, but didn't know much about it. So it was more of a call to community. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. So
let's back up a minute for those of us that don't really know the kind of the clear definition. So when you say boutique hotel, walk us through what that means and how's that different from a regular hotel?
Okay, so the first one, typically it's based on size and also, you know, decor. It's a very similar, like the first one was a 9-unit. My second one was also a 9-unit. And then the third one that I'm now also managing is a 27-unit. And that's probably, you know, on the cusp, right, of you know, from boutique hotel to hotel. So, you know, I really have, and I'm sure I'm open to debating. It's not something that I really like delved into, but I think it has a lot to do with the size of it. It has a lot to do with location and also the decor. So again, everything's very similar. Everything's very, it's just boutique. So it has one style that it kind of lends to all of the units.
And the one that you have now, the 27-unit, does it have any amenities besides I know there's like a common area and like a check-in area. Does it have any other amenities besides that?
No, we don't at this hotel. You know, the other one, the smaller one, has a courtyard, internal courtyard, which is lovely. This one has the lounge and the lobby that, you know, kind of community, but everything else is just standard basic rooms. And I always say that it's a very basic, it's not luxury. I pride myself in thinking, okay, I have something for every budget, especially someone who's coming to Old San Juan who wants to really experience that, you know, beautiful, quaint, you know, traditional experience. You know, but maybe can't break the bank, right? Because we have beautiful hotels, Palacio, we have El Convento, we have really beautiful hotels. And you saw it. It's lovely, but it's definitely not luxury by any means. That doesn't make it any less of a boutique hotel.
But you're literally, you're on the main block where everything's happening down there with the restaurants and the bars and shops and everything. So, I mean, location is key. And I think, that's an ideal location for that hotel. What's the average nightly rate?
Average nightly rate there is $149.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And competitively, so I'm assuming you are on the Airbnb platform and probably many others. How much of your business comes through Airbnb versus some of the other platforms that you use?
To be honest, for the hotels, not much. I do more Expedia and Booking for the hotels. Any boutique hotels generally are going to be running much more on those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And then selectively, since we have a lot of festivals and we have different opportunities for a lot of cruises coming in and out, I will selectively, put, depending on how reservations are, I will put it on Airbnb. But for the boutique hotel, that's mostly Expedia and Booking. They're the kind of the mammoths for hotels.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so after the hurricane, I mean, how did you recover from that? What was the timeline? And then I guess shortly after that, then you had COVID, right?
Yeah. We had a few punches. We also had earthquakes somewhere in between there, so we can't forget the earthquakes. I mean, it was a slow but also consistent improvement. A lot of people had said, gosh, Veronica, do you really want to stay in Puerto Rico? It's going to be 20, 30 years before the island is recouped, right? And you hear those numbers, Rich, and you think, okay, these are smarter people than I saying that. Is that possible? Like, that seems. And to be fair, no. Within first of all, I actually was able to get a contract shortly after to house the Coast Guard. So again, that was my first foray also in corporate, more and more of a corporate type of a contract and stay. So I was able to parlay it from vacation to work accommodations. So that was the first, I think, sign of hope that a lot of us saw, right? That a lot of us experienced after Maria, that, okay, people are coming here to work. People need places to stay. And, within a year and a half is when we started to see people starting to, then we started campaigning. There was a couple of tourism campaigns that said, if you really want to help us, come back, right? Come back, stay with us. And people really, slowly but surely heeded the call. But then, as you said, we did have a couple of other natural disasters that we were kind of, navigating. And that was earthquakes, and then the pandemic.
So,
but in the pandemic, though, as we all experienced, there was consistency, and we have a very large internal tourism play here. So there's a lot of internal tourism. So in that regard, it was good. At that time, I was not managing the 27 unit. So it was really just the 9 unit and then the other Airbnbs that I managed.
Got it. And so besides the hurricane season, what does the seasonality look like there in terms of, busy season versus non?
Yeah. So, we have great weather year round, which is obviously a huge, bonus for us. However, we do have kind of like a peak and valley around July, August, September. And then we start peering back up October, November, but really, during the warmest, really humid months, that's when I think things tend to slow down. And then because that's technically hurricane season, so going into September, it's still slow. October and November, we start seeing the peak come back up. And then our absolute peak is really December through May, June.
Okay. And then on the properties that you have, you mentioned in your bio that you have 3, but you're soon to be 5. So I'm assuming you're about to add on some more. What are the sizes of those properties and where are they located?
They're also in Old San Juan. It's a new property that I'm going to be managing, right, to mixed use commercial, as most of the buildings in Old San Juan are, where there's a commercial space below and then the residential apartments upstairs. This happens to be 2 units. One is a 2-bedroom and then the other one is a 1. And we're in negotiation for the master lease on that.
Okay, very cool. And so are you envisioning a different strategy with that because it's not attached to a boutique hotel, or is it kind of going to be very similar for the way that you get guests and the way you manage the property and everything?
Yeah, no, I definitely, like I said, I mean, I one of the things that I really want to pivot hard in this year and have more of volume in is the direct booking. I want less reliance on some of these other platforms, namely Airbnb and VRBO. So I'm working on building out a website, an internal campaign to really position myself, as someone, a go-to for Old San Juan for people of all budgets, and also build out a little bit more of my concierge services and offerings, which we do some of that now, but we're, really working on formally offering that, because one of the things that we find is that we aren't capitalizing fully on. And so I think as operators, I'm not a fan of just adding properties for the sake of adding properties. I really want to look at it holistically and add as much value for the guests first and foremost, but also maximize my return on the investment for each of these properties. So I'm going to be looking at them very closely from just a decor and just a kind of like a general experience perspective. And I also want to also offer some add-ons, right? That I think Old San Juan warrants and helps, right? Just because of the way it's constructed. I mean, again, a lot of people come to Old San Juan and they stay in Old San Juan for the duration of their stay. So, I really want to build out what we're doing for them to have the best experience in Old San Juan, and whether that's guided or just, again, directing them and then offering them a discount through some of our favorite vendors and restaurants, pubs. So that's really where, so I don't see it different, but again, I have the typical short-term rental, and then I have the hybrid, the boutique hotels. These 2 are apartments, so I'm going to look at them really holistically as short-term rentals. Excuse me. Thank you. And also, again, look at potentially, again, we don't have a huge midterm market in Old San Juan per se. It's definitely more of a vacation stay, but people do like to extend their stay sometimes. So I'm going to look at these 2 new units potentially as more of a corporate, and really build it out to be, potentially more of a corporate stay, and see how those go.
Okay. And what are your typical terms that you look for on your master leases?
Okay, well, so that's a great question. Because of what we go through here, I always look for an exit or 2. I mean, I try. I mean, my first time in the rodeo was, I went into business with someone that the contract was very one-sided, and so unfortunately, and also did not account for the hurricane, which was complete infrastructure breakdown, right? But I touch on it a little bit, the story in the book, in Hospitable Host. It was also a huge lesson to me in disaster capitalism, right? Everything changed when I secured that contract from the government, and it got, and the owner got wind of it. Everything changed. So it was kind of like a storm after the storm. So since then, I prepared in my contract clauses. If properties are not up to par and I can't actually generate an income and actually run my business out of it, I have an out. If there's obviously, like, I now have more of a operator centric agreement. So again, I'm completely upfront about, again, what it is that we're doing, how we do it. But mostly I look for an exit. I look for that opportunity that if something happens and we're unable to operate out of that property through natural disaster, or an owner who doesn't cooperate and doesn't want to fix things or address things that will ensure the safest and best experience for the guest, given the responsibilities that the owner has. That's what I look for primarily.
So is there a concern about regulatory issues within Old San Juan or where you're doing your master leases? Because that's kind of one of the things we have as an out if there's a change in the rules and with the jurisdiction that disallows you to do short-term rentals. So is that a risk, or is it already defined?
Oh, it's defined. It's very operator friendly here in Puerto Rico. We have an established kind of relationship with tourism. Old San Juan is interesting. I mean, I think because of the fact that after Hurricane Maria, we lost so many residents. And now, it's a little bit of a shift because, again, I am a resident as well. I've been a resident. I'm about to be a resident again. I had my unit rented for a while. And, to me, it's not so much of the regulation that I get concerned about. It's about the community relations and making sure that, we're all educating and educated on what's really impacting the cost of living. And it's really the cost of these buildings. It's really impossible. I mean, the way the market has just soared, it's really impossible to keep rents as low as they were traditionally in Old San Juan. So again, it's been an issue, just an internal conversation. So yeah, I'm always very conscious and sensitive to that. Because again, I'm very empathetic. I'm very interested in building out community and making sure that people still have affordable housing and that, the ratios are still, again, I think one of the lures to Old San Juan for me was that it was a community. It was an actual community. People lived there. I respected that. My best relationships came from that. But, things have changed. And so a lot of people have left. And so it's, again, it's a concern. But again, because the regulations have really been, and they will continue to be, I think, for the most part, very operator friendly. But yes, I do include something that referenced that if anything was to change through natural disaster or through regulations that impacts my ability to operate my business, that we would have the opportunity to renegotiate or exit the contract.
Okay. Do you also look for longer terms, like 24 months or longer?
Typically I'll do 2 years is what I look for. Yeah, 2 years is what I look for. Namely because we're in Puerto Rico, a lot of things happen. We're very contained here. And so, something impacts us, it could really, so I need to have the ability to pivot and be quick, nimble, gotta be nimble.
Well, and the other thing too, right? So it's called Old San Juan for a reason. Those buildings are hundreds of years old. And so when it comes to remodeling or maintaining, that's something you have to be on top of as well, right? I would imagine.
Absolutely. And, it really comes down to communication, because it's not just that, it's the proximity to these buildings. For instance, one of my units, Sevilla, we didn't get to see because that's usually very, very booked. That one is literally on the very busiest entertainment street of the old city. And it's wall to wall with a nightclub, right? So people are always like, okay, they didn't expect it to be that loud. I always talk about it though. In fact, I always, before accepting a reservation, we talk about it. I'm like, okay, are there any light sleepers in your party? Is anyone, what is the purpose of your trip? What are you hoping to do? And the minute someone goes, I just want to go to Old San Juan and relax, I'm like, yeah, that's not the place for you. That's not the place for you. Fortunately, we get a lot of bachelor parties and bachelorette parties, and it's a beautiful villa. It's like stepping into like the 1800s. It's really fantastic space. It's 2 floors and it's got a private terrace. So all of that, the internal courtyard, it is just lovely. So people kind of overlook the noise a little bit, although I provide earplugs and I provide a sound machine to kind of, but it is, again, if you're not expecting it. So to your point, it's a lot of communication. So part of the hospitality process is setting the right expectations up front before people arrive, so that they understand, listen, you are potentially going to be living like a local. I love it when people are like, hey, we're out of water. I'm like, hey, me too. What are we gonna do about it? I always leave emergency storage, so they end up laughing, and I end up, I'm like, I always try to give them that humor perspective, and that, like, hey, listen, it's all part of the adventure. It's part of the, it happens, and in these buildings, the water pressure sometimes is affected. If someone's doing construction, for instance, they're constructing and they're replacing the cobblestones in front of the hotel, and the noise and just the people can't get dropped off there, so these are things that have to get communicated, and we have to have a plan B, should a person have a need or disability. So yeah, I mean, the fact that it is the oldest city in America is it's a draw, but it's also a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge. And also because to repair anything, it's not easy. I mean, getting in and getting out sometimes is difficult, but also for any real construction, most buildings will need the Instituto de Cultura, the cultural institute, to kind of get in there and assess and put their stamp of approval on colors and on just everything, the colors of the actual what you're using, the grade of everything. So when some, that's why there's so many buildings that still need so much love. It's not easy. It really is not easy. It's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. But Old San Juan is Old San Juan. It's never going to change. The property value is always going to be there. If you're going to be anywhere on the island, like I said, there's so many places to visit on this beautiful island. I always say, people, if you only come to San Juan, you're doing yourself an injustice. You have not seen the island. I mean, you got to go down south just to step on Caribbean, on the Caribbean Sea. So, there's a lot of things to consider. Oh, the West Coast is very much more of an island experience. This East Coast is very metro area, so it's considered this. I remember when I first moved here, people would be like, when I was going to see my family in the West, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to my West, or I'm going to go to Rincon, and they were like, oh, you're going to the island, and I'm like, I'm on the island, and they're like, no, this is the metro area, so it's interesting that was something that I had to kind of grow accustomed to. So, but when you go there and you experience it, you really do understand the difference. It is pure island life. So I always tell people it's very important too. So that's another area that I'm looking at really closely, is making sure that people have a full holistic experience, and not your run of the mill, right? So that people feel like they really do get a true Puerto Rican experience. It's kind of like when I participate in Help Coordinate a Mastermind, I want people to leave here with the very best experience. I want them to the absolute holistic experience, especially people who want to invest here. I always say, come here first. Don't just think it's all one size fits all. It's not. There's a lot to consider here. And you do need a team. I mean, people always say, oh, it's passive income to have a rental property. Only if you've got a great manager, only if you've got someone boots on the ground that is going to be responsive for you, so that you don't have to worry about doing that. So that's another reason why I think that my business kind of grew and evolved and has steadily stayed, because that's one of the first questions that a client will ask me. And they're like, okay, so if we buy this, will you manage it? Will you, so it's almost like they go hand in hand, right? The purchase for the investment property and then the management.
Have you seen a spike in activity? And I know it's not recent. This has been many years now, but with the residency tax incentive for U.S. people to come there and stay there for 6 months out of the year and then rent the property out for the other 6 months, is that creating an opportunity for you as a manager to kind of help out with those properties?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely has been, not just the act itself, the federal act decree is very comprehensive. There's probably I don't know, I have a friend who's an expert in it, and he's almost like an encyclopedia. It's amazing when he talks about these, because there's I want to say there's 70 something chapters within this federal decree. So it's a little bit for everyone. But there's also a tourism within the decree. There's a tourism incentive. So what that is basically if you purchase something that I believe it's 7 units or more, and you're directly using it for tourism, you receive almost a 30 or 40% return, federal tax credit on your investment. I mean, it's incredible. If you think about that, that's just one of the incentives, right? You could also have a company that falls in within some of the other chapters of this decree. Going back to what you're saying with, when you relocate here and establish a business and you create economic development in that regard through a company. So yeah, it's certainly been a plus. But to be honest with you, a lot of people underestimate how many of the short-term rental operators are Puerto Rican. And so, they have their own properties. They lived in their property. It was handed down from their parents. It was almost like, people don't talk about it. They're like, oh, there's a big problem with, we don't have the numbers to support that short-term rentals are the reason why housing is an issue at this point. I think housing has always been an issue because there's been a lot of more rentals than purchasing here historically. So that's, I think we had a shortage to begin with, right? And while, STRs have an implication on it, I think there's a lot more to it, and we're actually actively having conversations, with, like I said, with people that are way smarter than I am, have way more data, to try to see how we can come together and make sure that people first are educated, that this is not a taboo. STRs are ruining the housing. That has not been corroborated. The lack of development here has been a huge factor. The abandoned buildings, the fact that again, construction is so expensive here. The lack of employees, professionals to be able to do the work. So there's a lot that goes in here, and I think that we can come together and be really creative and help not only continue to capitalize on a bigger tourism, because I think there's a lot of growth still to become in tourism here in Puerto Rico. It's not even that's not even the highest industry in Puerto Rico. So, but I think that there's a lot more rolling up the sleeves that has to happen, and people really getting involved with vivienda, which is housing here, and maybe getting together with some of the short-term rental alliance, who's doing some great work at to really open those conversations and be at the table for it.
Yeah, very cool. So I think they have another event coming up towards the end of the year that I'm going to probably try to attend. I think it's in December.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Look forward to having you.
So hospitable host, let everyone know what that is and what your involvement was, and your new one that you're working on now too.
Yeah, I mean, hospitable host is a movement, right? It's really just, it took off. It was an opportunity for Jody brilliantly to give an opportunity for people to tell their stories and to help educate each other and talk about why we got into the business, how we're operating, what makes us successful, right? And it was, I don't think anyone really expected it to be as amazing as it was. I mean, it was just one of those things where it's just like, once it took off, it just took off. And now they just published a second volume. And so in talking to, I had the privilege of being invited by Jody. And I remember, thinking to myself, gosh, I'm like, there's so many great operators that don't speak English, right? Necessarily here in Puerto Rico and beyond, and all, Latin America and just Spanish speaking countries. So, and I would always come to that question. People would say, well, are you going to translate it? And we thought about that for a second. Will we translate it? And I'm like, well, translating it wouldn't highlight effectively the Spanish speaking operator, right? We want these stories to really be authentic.
You want the culture, you want the backbone of the fabric of the environment. You don't want it to be, somebody else's story. So
yeah, and it wasn't the whole point of it. And Jody and I talked about it. We wanted to really highlight people and not necessarily just market an English-speaking operator to the Spanish market. That's not the point of it. The point is to really highlight these exceptional operators for what they're doing and give them a platform in Spanish. There's just not a lot of resources for it. So we're very proud to do that. So you're going to be seeing and hearing more about it. I'm happy to send you the link if there's anybody that's watching currently that's a Spanish speaking Latino operator who would like to join that movement, this community. I really think it's going to be something really huge and very special. Really nothing like it. And the benefit is that we will also have all the added benefit of all the resources of the hospitable host community.
And so it's going after someone that's in the Hispanic heritage, that they don't have to be in Puerto Rico. They could be anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. This is a platform to help people. And actually it would be, diversity is a spice of life. We want to make sure, we have representation from many different countries.
Nice. So
I'm actually talking to someone from Venezuela. We have a couple of people that I won't mention, but pretty powerhouses from Mexico. So yeah, I fully expect to be really the best of the best and the who's who of Spanish speaking operators.
Is there a potential, like a target of number of hosts that you're trying to get to put together? Or
we have I think Jody's typically always published around 35 to 40, 30 to 40, something like that. So, we'll see how it is. Like I said, there's no pressure. We don't want to force it or put a number to it. Just want to see what the interest is like, and certainly, give people the best experience, because it really is a whole experience when you become an author with Hospitable Host. I mean, it's really comprehensive, all the resources that are provided, and all the different like tutelage, and just the learning, when it comes to like social media conversation, just, marketing. This is, I mean, again, it's just a great, I don't know anybody else, any other publishers that are doing that. It's a very holistic experience for the author. So you really come out of it not only highlighting your own story, but it's really cathartic too. Like you actually feel like it's kind of like therapy. And then afterwards, you're trained by some of the best people in the business, editing, copywriting, speaking in public, just to name a few, that you really you actually level up your whole professional brand, which is pretty awesome. That's just icing on the cake.
Very cool. Yeah. No, and what I'll do, I'll put a link in this post as well for those of you that want to order the book. It's a fantastic book. I've actually ordered it, and it's on my table with my other books to read. So I haven't read it yet, but
yeah, and I'll give you the link too. I'll give you the link, so if people want to explore the becoming an author, a contributing author to it.
Yeah, no, we do have a lot of Hispanic folks that we work with in the States that might have an interest in that as well. So I'll be happy to spread the word on that. And so now that we're getting close to the end here, what's the next on the horizon for you as far as short-term rental business goes? What are your aspirations? What are your goals?
Well, you know what? I definitely am making more of an effort and play to move from management to ownership. So, I purchased my first duplex property here on the island. That's, we're getting ready to rehab that and working on the whole process. It would be my first flip here on the island. So stay tuned. It'll be an interesting experience. And I plan on sharing it because I think it's important. I'm looking at a couple of other opportunities as well, like multifamily and just different opportunities to explore different areas of the market potentially here. But I'm also not opposed to, I think Amavi has gotten to a place where we can potentially also diversify and invest in the States. So my dad's in Florida, my mom's in Connecticut. So there's different markets that I do constantly kind of look at, and I do like the whole East Coast corridor. So yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I think it's a growth stage for me, and it's a matter of just determining, okay, is that, that diversification going to happen here on the island where it's on the West Coast, going back to what I was saying, to give people more of a holistic experience on the island so that they could stay potentially a couple of nights in Old San Juan, and then obviously, move it to the West and stay at our place there. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the areas. The book is going to be a huge priority. I really want this to be special. I want this to be really something that changes the market and giving Spanish speaking operators resources to continue to learn. And it shows companies that they really are doing themselves a disservice by not marketing effectively and offering some of their tools and resources in Spanish. So yeah, that's what I'm focusing on myself, is ownership and diversification and book.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think a lot of us, no matter if we started with master leasing or with managing, we always kind of gravitate to the ownership. We just finished our rehab up on Lake Lanier in Georgia, and it reminded me of why I used to do like 8 rehabs a year, or we used to, my wife and I, and it reminded me of why we don't do that anymore. Because of the work and what's involved. And so, I don't plan on doing too many major rehabs. I'm definitely fine with some of the cosmetic stuff. But we as well are kind of looking to grow, our ownership and acquisitions into the portfolio. But like you, I love the diversity with, being able to do master leases and manage properties as well. It's always good to have that diversification. And so, I think it's a natural progression to want to kind of get to that ownership stage, because that's kind of the long play, right? You build in the equity and be able to pay it down quicker. And, it's definitely a good play. And so I look forward to hearing more about the duplex and, the progress on that and how it's going.
Thank you. You will.
But, thanks so much for jumping on. I know we had a little bit of a mix up in the time, but I'm happy we were able to get you on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation. Really, I just, how much I have respect for you and your wife and what you're doing. And so happy that we have this synergy and that you're here as frequently as you are, which is great. We just got to get you investing. We just got to get your property here. We're going to work on that when you're here.
No, we'll reciprocate, right? You want to invest in the States. I want to invest in Puerto Rico. So we'll figure it out.
I love it. And that's the beauty of this business. And we experienced it in Nashville, which is a great time at STR Wealth. Just the synergy and the fact that it's a real community and people really are so willing to help each other. And again, that exchange of information that is so easy, that comes so easy for us, I think, in this business, probably was one of the most, as an educator at heart, it probably was the most enriching for me, because I'm used to not being in environments where people are so open about their best practices and about, their core niches and what's making them money and how are they becoming successful. And so part of, I don't want to be remiss and not mention this, but part of where I see myself evolving as well is I'm having much more conversations to impact female investors. As a commercial broker, it's really hard to miss the fact that, of commercial investors, less than 3%, I think is the last stat that I heard from a mentor of mine, Beth Azor, who basically, she puts on an amazing summit every year. I just experienced that. And that was like 200 amazing women in this business, commercial real estate. And it's still so jarring to see that it's just a fraction, less than 2% of investors in commercial real estate are women. Rich, how much of that do you think are Latinas? You know what I mean? So it's less than 1. So I'm having more and more conversations because I feel like it's an ecosystem. It's an opportunity for women to really exercise their right. And obviously we're making more money now, and so we want to make sure that we're investing accordingly and we're setting ourselves up for success. And so a lot of my conversations now are really entering the how do we close a generational gap? How do we build the confidence of women to invest, right, more confidently, and have that freedom, have that that opportunity to really just diversify their own portfolio. So, I mean, I definitely see myself in that direction too, working more and more with women. So I'm excited.
Well, for what it's worth, since I've been doing these weekly interviews, it's probably about 40% have been women. So I think,
awesome.
That's a good
I saw some of yours. That's great. You had some power. You really, I'm honored that you invited me, because I've seen your speakers and I clearly watched them before, and they're amazing, really amazing. So,
well, you're amazing as well, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you so much.
We'll definitely.
Sorry, I was a little under the weather. My energy's a little off because I am totally congested, like right now. Like I don't even know how I'm breathing and talking at the same time.
Well, we'll get you back on when you launch the new book, and when you're finished with the new rehab project, and we'll get an update there. But
that would be awesome.
Thanks again, Veronica. Really appreciate it. And then any of you guys that are watching that are interested to learn more about B&B Investing Group, feel free to send me a message. We usually like to work with people that are a good fit. And so we usually like to have a quick 10, 15-minute call just to make sure that our program's a good fit for you before we do a deep dive on it. So if you're interested to learn more about what we can help teach new folks, reach out via Messenger, and we'll look forward to it. And I'll put a lot of those links that we talked about during this interview down below. That way you guys can be in touch with what Veronica's working on as well. So thanks again, Veronica.
Thank you, Rich.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. You too.
Thanks for jumping on the B&B Investing Podcast this week. Please click on the subscribe and like button below. For more trainings, property tours, and content, you can join my B&B Investing Facebook group by clicking below. If you are ready to grow your short-term rental portfolio and maximize your monthly income, you can click on the link below to schedule a quick strategy call with Rich or someone from his team to see how we can help or point you in the right direction. Stay tuned for our next episode and hope to see you on the B&B Investing Group podcast.